So for our next guest, I would like to call on stage Anthony Scaramucci from SkyBridge Capital. Anthony, please join us.
Good morning, guys.
Grab a seat in the middle.
Good morning, guys.
Grab a seat here.
Okay.
So Anthony is a good friend. I have, obviously, as you see, a lot of notes on how to introduce him. I could say that he was at Goldman, that he runs SkyBridge Capital.
Are you going to tell him I got fired from the White House? Or?
Oh, wait. Don't spoil it all. But he's written great best-selling books about Bitcoin and Solana. As he says, if ever you want to test that claim, please visit his basement and see how many books he's purchased.
True, yeah. But I made them international bestsellers by buying all of them. Okay, if you need one, just email me.
But
okay, go ahead. Keep going.
What I want to say about Anthony, which is fascinating, is he belongs in the pantheon of people that actually have a unit of measurement given after the name. So you know how we have the watt, the ampere, the joule. Anthony has the Scaramucci. Now, one Scaramucci is surviving 11 days in Trump's cabinet.
I thought you were going to say 10, and I thought you were going to hurt my feelings, but you got it right. It's actually
11. And I will even say, being generous, that Elon almost made it to 12, right?
So Elon lasted 11.8 Scaramucci's, you know. I mean, you could use it in a sentence, like Liz Truss lasted 4.1 Scaramucci's, right? You could use it in a sentence. All right, keep going. Come on.
I'll keep going. Listen, you're going to be seeing a lot of me today, so what I want to do is spice it up and invite another dear friend of ours, Daniel Gutenberg, who's a fellow YPOer, a fellow MPL member, to come and join us and have fun with Anthony, because usually I have too much fun with him.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Come. Do you want me to you sit there? Okay. All right.
So great pleasure to have you, and I have to say about all your accomplishments, and I'm really looking up to you.
Was that a good introduction or a bad introduction? I can't really figure that one out. But anyway,
I tell you, I'm really looking up to you. We know each other for years. We spent last week in Samaritz.
Yes.
And between last week and now, Anthony.
Nothing's happened in the world between last week and now.
Went to the U.S. for a family birthday,
yeah,
80-year-old, and Anthony is a real mensch. He's a real, friends are friends, and I really, really appreciate that about you.
Okay, the introduction.
And I heard some rumors.
The introduction is getting better now. Okay, keep going, Daniel. All right, go ahead.
I heard some rumors that you met with some senators last night to talk about the piece of land in the north of Europe that maybe some of you have heard about, Greenland, and a little problem that we have there. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about it, or is that too secret?
Let me start by applying. First of all, thank you guys for being here, and let me apply a little bit of context and perhaps more history than you guys want to hear. But I think at the end of the Second World War, the leadership, European leadership, American leadership, looked back at the end of the First World War and said, okay, wow, that was a disaster. We got the treaty wrong. We set things up with too many reparations. How do we create a society now where we can integrate and take once enemies like Germany and Japan and make them allies? And how can we create a system of prosperity and protection for what I would call free people around the world? And that architecture was put together about 80 years ago. The problem with that is if you read books like The Fourth Turning and you study demography, what happens is people age out of that system. And so when you get out maybe 2-3 generations, new political leaders look back and say, well, why did we do that? Why is that system in place? And I'm a new person with new thinking. Let me break that system. Let me shatter that system. And if you go through American history, you can see that happening to us. We form the country. 80 years later, we go into a civil war. 80 years after that, we're in the Great Depression. And then we set up this architecture, which ultimately led to great peace and prosperity. So it's not just Donald Trump in the United States. I think it's very, very important for people to understand this. There's a systemic problem that has happened in the United States. And what happens sometimes in life is that we make these decisions. We get a lot of decisions right, and then we get arrogant about our decisions. And we think, well, if we made all those decisions right, we're going to continue to make decisions right. And what happened in the United States, frankly, is in 1989. Francis Fukuyama said, this is the end of history. The Berlin Wall is coming down. The policy of containment established by George Kennan has worked. We are now, Western liberalism and democratic capitalism is going to work around the world. And this is now the end of history. And we got very, very arrogant with that. We said, okay, this is great. We're going to start offshoring and we're going to do things together. And by the way, the Chinese government, they're trying to urbanize their population, which is quite poor. We're going to help them do that. And of course, they're going to embrace our system because our system, Uber alles, and we've won in terms of the global struggle and the global conflict. And this was a terrible mistake, by the way. And by the way, I will tell you, I was right there for it. I was 35 years old in 1999. There was a World Trade Organization protest in Seattle. Does anybody remember that? Raise your hand if you remember that. There's some people here that actually remember it. And what happened was the Clinton administration wanted to bring China into the World Trade Organization. And the American workers did not want it. They said, this is going to be terrible for us. They went to Seattle, they marched, they made this big protest. And I was a smug, probably very self-centered, very self-assured Wall Street analyst at the time. And I said, okay, well, this is ridiculous. We're going to get lower cost of capital. We should certainly do this offshoring. It makes complete and total sense. And we got that wrong. And we got that very, very wrong, because I want to now flash forward to the Trump campaign 2016. And so just for my background quickly, I grew up in a blue-collar family. My dad was a union person. He was a crane operator. My mother was actually a makeup artist. Okay? So if you see me on TV, I'm using Mac 5, actually. That's my color scheme if you ever want to buy me a gift. Okay, and my mother was always complaining about my makeup. Okay, but that was my family. It was a small house, blue-collar Italians living out on Long Island. My dad was going to work at 3 a.m. He was coming back at 2:30 in the afternoon. I want to set that up for you because that person, my father, may his soul rest in peace, had a high enough wage where he could own a small house and his kids were going to go without hunger, and there was an aspirational sense of these working class people. Now I'm going to fast forward to the Trump campaign. And I'm also going to, this doesn't reflect well on me, but I want to explain this to you. I went from that small house, public school education, Tufts University. My parents thought it was spelled Toughs. I mean, they really had no clue, okay? And then I went to the Harvard Law School. And then I came out of Harvard and I went to Goldman Sachs, and then I started to build some hedge funds, and lo and behold, I started to come to Davos. And what happens is, ladies and gentlemen, you get the collective biases of the people you hang out with. If you hang out with really successful people, you get into their little hive mind and you start thinking like them. I take you to 2016. I'm on a Trump plane. I was working for Jeb Bush. Jeb drops out of the race. Trump calls me. We know each other for 20 years. Come work for me. We'll have fun on the campaign. Colossal, stupid decision number one. I said yes to that one. Okay, we'll get to the White House in a second. But I go with him to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And the people in the audience that I'm meeting with are telling me they have lost their jobs. They're telling me they're working at Domino's Pizza, delivering pizza. They're working at Lowe's. And they are economically desperational. So we took a very large group of people in the United States, like my dad, once economically aspirational, and we made them economically desperational. And ladies and gentlemen, you could feel it. And if you're an empathetic person, you would have pain for what was going on. Okay, in terms of the dysfunction in these towns. I did 71 campaign stops with Donald Trump. You can hate Donald Trump or you can like Donald Trump, but he identified something that was going on in America that establishment politicians were ignoring, maybe due to that hive mind, maybe due to that collective bias. And by the way, I missed it. It doesn't reflect well on me. Trump, there's Trump. I mean, Trump was like living in a triplex apartment adjacent to the Tiffany store on Fifth Avenue. I mean, this apartment looked like Louis XIV smoked crystal meth and like decorated the thing. I mean, he's doing it to the Oval Office now. But I mean, the point I'm making is you would never think that this was the guy that would get his fingers on the pulse of what was going on in rural and lower middle income America. And so I'm setting that scene for you because those people are angry, those people are frustrated, those people don't like globalism, they don't like the Davos community, the Davos citizen, the Davos man or woman, and Trump represents them. And this is a systemic problem. It's not Donald Trump. If you sit there and say, okay, Trump is a maniac, he's going to leave the stage, and then things are going to revert to normal, then you're actually missing the political plot that's going on in the United States. Because you're seeing the manifestation of it on both sides. You're seeing a democratic socialist who's effectively a hard left populist, Zoran Mandani, winning in New York, and you're seeing a relatively hard right populist, Donald Trump, winning in the US. That's a problem in the system. The system has to be corrected, and these people have to be re-engaged. Okay, so I know it was probably a little long-winded, Daniel, but I think it's very important to lay that out. And so now we're here. He wants to bully Europe, and he wants to bully and attack globalism, and he's doing it for a couple of reasons. The main reason he's doing it for is it's part of the culture war in the U.S. His supporters like it. Go look at the polling. 91% approval rating among the Republicans. You know, his foreign policy, I'm not making this up, 83% among the Republicans. The general polling on taking with a military intervention or a buying Greenland, negative, very, very negative. Nobody wants that. And so it won't happen. And so he's getting pushed back now by the Republican senators. He's getting pushed back by the Democratic senators. And I believe that there will be a compromise despite all of the rhetoric that's going on. If you looked back in the 1990s before Bill Clinton and Al Gore were cutting back our military trying to establish a peace dividend, we actually had 15 bases in Greenland. Go look at the old maps. I think Trump wants to restore some of those bases, but what he really wants is he wants the Chinese not involved in that area. And you guys may remember this, about a year ago, the Chinese said they were going to make an investment in Greenland and build an airport there. And I think that's where the rhetoric started. So again, I do think this gets resolved favorably. I do think that there are sane people still in America that are looking at this, but America has this systemic problem that we have to figure out how to cure. We have to bring those people back and make them think that they can be aspirational and that their children could eventually do better than them, because they don't feel that way right now.
I feel like after 3 days of Davos, the title of Davos should be the radical is the new normal. I mean, it's not only a US problem. I think it's really all over the world. You've seen manifestations going on right here outside the house, actually. And that really worries me. So what do you think is Trump coming today to Davos, either contributing or the opposite of that? What is his goal?
Listen, I could be wrong about this. He's a very, prima facie, he's not well, right? Just look at him, okay? And he's a very weird guy, and everybody knows that. I mean, the orange war paint on his face, the hair, he's decorating the Oval Office like he's Liberace. I mean, like, he's not a normal guy. You guys know he's not a normal guy, and you're laughing about it because you know what the problem with humor is when you say something that's true, that is very uncomfortable, people laugh. But he's not. He's not a normal guy. And what people have not figured out is you have an abnormal guy who's the president of the United States. Because for 80 years, whether you like Richard Nixon or Jimmy Carter or Barack Obama or George Bush, and you may have disagreed with their policies, they were institutionalists and they were following a course trajectory of bipartisanship inside the ambit of the Constitution. And Trump doesn't want to do that, and Trump is reflexively contrarian, as H.R. McMaster said about him. And if there was a norm or a totem of institution, he would like to bust that. Because, number one, it's fun for him. He likes to break things. Number two, he wants everybody's eyeballs in this room on him. Everybody's eyeballs. And so when you talk about this radicalism, it's really represented by him. He's jarring people because people are looking at it and saying, well, he's the president of the United States. That's an august institution. But stop thinking about him like that. You have to think about him as somebody that's not well. And you have to think about him as somebody that wants a lot of attention. And you have to think about him as somebody that is the greatest reality television producer in the history of reality television. And once you start thinking about him like that, then you can manage him, okay? A very good friend of mine who I was out with last night, who gave an incredible speech yesterday, and I'm going to encourage people to read the speech, is Prime Minister Carney. And Mark and I were out together last night talking about this, and I'll share it with you because I don't think Prime Minister Carney would mind me sharing with it, and I do talk about it on the podcast. If you meet Trump on his terms and you push back on Donald Trump, he relents. You know, Mark Carney said, hey, if you're going to call me the governor or the 51st state, we're not going to have any engagement with you. And in any post-communique on Truth Social, I have to be referred to as the Prime Minister, and it's the sovereign country of Canada. And Trump agreed to that. Okay. Moreover, if you push back on him and you co-produce with him, then you're going to be in a different position with him. If you're walking into the Oval Office like Zelensky did the first time, or, and forgive me, I can't remember the name of the president of South Africa, maybe somebody can remind me who it was, but they ambushed him. Okay, they made him a B-roll actor in their reality television production. And so you got to stop. If you're a world leader, you say, okay, this guy's unwell, he's sitting in a very august institution, and he wants everybody's attention, and he does want to emasculate me or humiliate me. And so how do I premeditatively get into the situation to prevent that from happening? And so, by the way, if you're a world leader, don't send him text messages. Okay, just don't do it. Because what he's going to do is he's going to try to humiliate you, because you're probably going to be obsequious to him on a text message. I mean, the first message that Rutte sent him, I felt bad for the guy, you know. But then the second message, I'm like, the guy didn't learn the lesson, you know. Now, I don't know Mark, but my message to him is go call Mark Carney, okay, because Mark Carney understands this better than you, and get on the same side as Prime Minister Carney.
Incredible. I know that you have to run back soon to the center. Do you have more time, or you really?
Can we take a few questions? Why don't we take 2 or 3 questions before I leave? Is that cool? Anybody has any questions? Yes, sir.
So very interested what you're saying about Albuquerque and everything, right? But what is the solution? Have you any ideas around that? They give all these people that are disenfranchised with leadership.
Right.
They
So,
have the small house.
so the real question is, what is the solution? And so the U.S. needs reform. The U.S. needed reform after the Civil War. The U.S. needed reform during the Great Depression. And again, we're 80 years out again, and the U.S. needs reform. There are 2 things that are going wrong in the U.S. right now. First one is the gerrymandering. And so if you're from outside the U.S., maybe you don't understand it. But what you're able to do in the United States is, if you're in power, you can redistrict and cut your congressional district to favor your incumbency. Right, so the Congress has like a 14% approval rating, which is like slightly above like Kim Il-jung, the North Korean dictator. Everybody hates the Congress, but they have a 95% re-election rate in these districts. Moreover, there's 435 districts in the United States for the House of Representatives. There are only 22 that are contestable. So what's going on in the U.S. is they went crazy with the gerrymandering. I think you're going to hear from Ross Perot's son, or maybe you heard from already. Before, yeah. Okay, so his father did something that scared the daylights out of the duopoly. He ran for president in 1992, got 19.9% of the vote. And by the way, if you go back at his speeches, he was right about just about everything. He predicted a lot of the things that were going to happen. He was against NAFTA. He said it would be a great sucking sound of jobs. But he scared the daylights out of these politicians. And so they interlocked with each other and they tightened the duopoly. Okay, so we have to bust that. We need reform to end that type of gerrymandering. They have to be more proportionate to the population, and they have to look like geometric shapes that we would recognize from geometry, as opposed to these jagged edge thing. And if we did that, you would cut the tail risk from the political extremes. The second thing we have to do is we have to end Citizens United. Most internationalists don't know what that is. But in January of 2010, Justice Scalia, he rendered a Supreme Court decision that said, if you got dough, you can spend it in politics. Spend unlimited amounts of money in politics. It's your First Amendment right. And what it has done, ladies and gentlemen, is it set up a separate but equal democracy. And if you look at the legislative agenda for the Congress, it's big business, it's big pharma, it's big banks, it's tax cuts for the rich. The big, beautiful spending bill, if you're making $50,000 or less, you lost $700 of benefits. If you make $1 million or more, you got a $7,000 credit on your taxes. Okay, this is elemental of what's going on, and the people on the street are feeling it. So you have to, those are two big pieces of reform. You have to figure out if you can get a politician to explain that to the American people, and then you got to figure out if the American people are ready for that level of reform to break the current sclerosis in the system, and then go back to thinking about 10, 15, 20-year plans. A 20-year plan for deficit reduction, a 20-year plan for infrastructure rebuild. We've got to get off of the 2- and 4-year plans. The Chinese have a 100-year plan. Everybody knows that. They have a 50-year plan. But in America, we have a cable news plan. It's a 3-minute plan. If you do those things, we can begin the process of this desperate need of reform that the country sorely needs at this moment. But those are great questions, and that's the direction we'd have to go in. Yes, sir. Why don't I take 2 more questions, then I'm going to unfortunately have to leave. I'll take this one and the gentleman in the back. Go ahead, sir.
Aside from the contradictory and confusing rhetoric, what do you think Trump's, deep down, what do you think his position is on Ukraine, and what do you think motivates him on that issue?
Well, he's very afraid of Vladimir Putin. We know this about him. I have said this publicly. McMaster has said it, Kelly. When I worked in the first administration, remember, I was only in the administration for 11 days, got into a fight with him, he fired me after 11 days, no problem. But I did work with him for almost a year. And so there's something about his past, there's something in his life that he's very, very worried about. He campaigned on releasing the Epstein files. Everybody remember that? Less than 2% of the Epstein files have been released. And so he doesn't want to go against Putin. Now, interestingly enough, the infrastructure and the system that's currently in place in the United States has prevented Trump from doing exactly what he would like to do, which is put a hurt on Ukraine and give Vladimir Putin what he wants. Because, we're still providing signal intelligence, satellite intelligence to the Ukrainian military. This is really the system, and even though Hegseth and Trump are in lockstep with Putin, the system is really against them, and the Republican senators are also against that. And I think that the Republican senators and the Democrats understand what's at stake here in Europe and free Europe if we don't get a positive resolution to that war. But Putin has a hold on him. If you can tell me what it is, maybe backstage, I would really love to know exactly what it is. I don't think anybody really knows what it is, but he is consistently never going against Putin, no matter what his rhetoric is. If he'll say something at the UN, you say, "Oh, okay," nope, and he goes right back. So we don't know, but that's his position with Ukraine, and I'm not exactly sure how it gets resolved. And if you're asking me, I think the stalemate generally continues until Trump leaves office. There's a question in the back there, and then unfortunately I have to go. Yes, sir. You guys are more fun than the White House press corps. You're also less drunk than the White House press corps. I mean, they start drinking at like 10 a.m.
Also,
okay. No,
Thank you so much.
Drunk. Okay, go ahead.
And big fan of the podcast, long-time listener, first-time caller. Really interesting to hear what you were saying and how you were characterizing certain relationships between Trump and other world leaders. And it would be really interesting to hear your views, observations on, first, Trump's relationship with Keir Starmer, especially in light of yesterday's news about Chagos Islands and what Trump has been saying about Keir Starmer and what that means for the special relationship between the UK and the US. And also, second, the relationship between Trump and Netanyahu. I see that Netanyahu was the only foreign leader invited to his New Year's celebrations, and whether that is a kind of co-producing relationship. Yeah.
So, I mean, I would say with Keir Starmer, I would say generally he's handled Trump well. And I think that Ambassador Mandelson, who had to depart because of the Epstein crisis, they generally handled him well. And what they did was they went first. They cut a 10% tariff deal with him, which is exactly what he was looking for. But I think Prime Minister Starmer's personality, okay, he's a little bit of softer diplomatic approach to things. If you look at Carney, Carney is a tough guy. Carney can forecheck somebody into the corner in a hockey game, okay, elbows up. Okay, he can also be diplomatic. And I think again, I'm not a executive coach or anything like that, but I would just say to the prime minister, you got to get your elbows up once in a while with the president, because he is an Anglophile. And he is, because he sees himself as a monarch, he is a monarchist, okay, and he wants to have a good relationship with King Charles. And remember, his mother is from Scotland. And so I think it will generally go in the right direction, even though you're seeing this bullying type of rhetoric going on. I would just say to Stormer, you gotta get your elbows up once in a while with this guy. And everybody's afraid, right? Because they go to a cabinet meeting and they say, my UK economy, we separated from Europe, and it's not a big economy, and if he puts a hurt on me, it could be devastating to my people. I would worry less about that. I would think more Churchillian, okay, where if you give an inch, somebody like Trump is going to take a mile, and so you got to step in there. The Netanyahu relationship is a very complicated relationship because it's roller coastered. They were tight in the first term. He got super pissed at Netanyahu when he congratulated Biden, and it was very strained for a period of time. And it's gotten tight again generally. And I think Trump, grew up in New York. He's not an anti-Semite, thank God. Okay, and of course that's a terrible thing to be. And I think, and I was here 2 years ago screening the IDF film and the atrocities that took place, and I certainly don't want innocent people to get killed in a war. But I think Trump sides with the idea that Israel needs to be its own country, and Israel needs to have some levels of boundaries of protection around it. And I think that's the messaging there. But I'm going to just tell you something. They're too much alike. Just hear me out. Okay, they're too much alike for them to really get along. Okay, so there'll always be an underlying strain in that relationship. Okay, I'll take it real quick. Go ahead. I know you were...
Pauline, go ahead.
All right, go ahead. Pauline. Yeah.
Just wondering, what's your prediction on the Bitcoin and the future of the US dollar?
So my prediction on Bitcoin. So listen, I've gotten this unbelievably wrong, so don't go by me. Maybe you got to do the opposite of me. I was very bullish last year. And we got that wrong. I think I didn't anticipate the number of whales that were selling into the strength of the ETF buying. My friend Raoul Paul, I don't know if you know him or if you follow him on Instagram, he's a big macro trader. We work together at Goldman Sachs. He thinks Bitcoin is currently undervalued relative to gold, silver, and other what we would call hedge assets to currency debasement. He thinks it's undervalued. It should be trading somewhere closer to 160,000. But and that's where I think it will probably go this year if you're asking me to put a prediction. But I said that last year and I got it wrong. But I think directionally we're right. And I can just tell you that you have to always be a relativist in life, because 3 years ago when I was here, Bitcoin was 17,000. Sam Bankman-Fried had blown up. And I would have given like body parts to be where we are now at like 89,000. Do you know what I mean? So you always have to take a perspective with Bitcoin.
Ladies and gentlemen,
all right, guys,
please give a big hand to Anthony Scaramucci.
Thank you for inviting me. Good, thank you. Okay, good to see you.
Maybe there's a photographer? No, he didn't.
Photograph? Okay.
One picture for all of us.
We're taking a picture?
Yeah, of course. Have to.
Okay, make me look taller than these guys, please. Put these guys down. No, sorry.